The sun clung low to the broken parapets of Harrenhal, casting crooked shadows that bled into every fissure of the blackened stone. Arya Stark leaned her slim frame against a ruined merlon and forced herself to breathe through the stench of the cook fires far below. A soft summer breeze, cooler now with autumn creeping south, lifted the dark hair from her brow and carried the acrid tang of charred meat and wet straw. Somewhere a forge rang with the steady clang of a hammer. Somewhere else, a boy screamed as the Tickler's men found new ways of peeling secrets from bone. Harrenhal was a place where screams never died, only echoed. In her palm lay the iron coin Jaqen had given her. Small, misshapen, black as river mud, its surface etched with faint, alien marks. She traced its grooved rim with a roughened thumb, feeling again that odd warmth that crept from the metal whenever her thoughts turned cruel. Valar Morghulis, the strange man had said. So softly the word seemed breathed in smoke, before vanishing into the crowds with a step as light as a cat's. Mendi Dodi Dor. It was the one promise the world never failed to keep. Arya had stared at the coin for nights on end, rolling it across her knuckles, flipping it against the hard table in Roose Bolton's kitchens, worrying the grooves while stripping carcasses beside Weasel and the rest. If she whispered Valar Morghulis, would the walls themselves collapse and bury all the monsters inside? It was a childish fancy, and yet Janahakar, was that ever his true name, had melted a dozen guards with nothing more than whispered names. 3 names. He had promised her. 3 deaths. She had squandered 2 on small men. Hateful men, but small. The thought sickened her now. She had squandered lives. She could have ended Joffrey. She could have ended Cersei. She could have handed the realm a mercy it would never see, willingly. Instead, she had chosen Chiswick, Dunson, fleas on a wolf's rump. But she had 1 coin left. Night cracked over the sky like ink spilled across parchment. Bats whirled above the towers, darting after the last of the day's gnats as white moonlight spilled over Harrenhal's melted walls. Arya watched it all from that ragged parapet, until the forge fell silent, and even the rats grew still. When at last she turned, she found Jaqen waiting in the narrow stairwell, as though he had been standing there since dusk. He was no longer the ragged Lannister captive she had first noticed in Yorn's cage. A fresh tunic of brown wool draped his lean shoulders. His red-tanned white hair had been trimmed back, the colors blending until the streaks appeared natural. Only his eyes remained unchanged, pools of quiet steel that swallowed torchlight. "A girl has summoned a man," he said. No greeting, no bow. His mouth barely moved, yet each word sounded as precise as a knife sliding into flesh. What name will she give? Arya's throat bobbed. She felt the coin's sharp rim bite into her calloused palm. Swallowing, she lifted it between finger and thumb where moonlight could glint along its edge. "I'm not giving a name this time," she said. Her voice scraped the cold air like the whistle of a whetstone. "I'm giving a target." She imagined Sansa's tear-streaked face, Septa Mordane's severed head, father on the steps of Baelor's Sept. Even the butcher's boy Micah bleeding out into black mud, cut down like a pig. Since King's Landing she had dreamed of nothing but lions roaring and heads on spikes. "A man serves," said Jaqen. He stared at the coin as though seeing through it, into whatever black seas lay beyond. A girl must speak clearly. Arya drew a breath so deep it quaked in her ribs. "Cersei Lannister," she whispered, and just saying the name felt like flinging a torch into an oil-soaked hall. "I want her dead. Before the battle, before Stannis takes King's Landing, before everything." She thought of Tyrion and his wildfire, rumors whispered among men too drunk to measure their words. She thought of Baratheon sails pressing up Blackwater Bay, of green fire swallowing ships whole. So many would burn. "Kill the queen," she said. "Kill her quickly. Kill her slow. I don't care. Just do it." Wind hissed through arrow slits, stirring the torch behind him. Flames leapt, painting Jaqen's face in restless amber. "It is no small name," he murmured. "She is a queen." A faint smile crept to the corners of his thin mouth. "Queens command many eyes. Many knives guard them." "Then find sharper knives?" Arya rasped. "You said all men must die. Make sure she dies first." "Sir." Silence stretched long enough for Arya's courage to falter. She readied herself for refusal, for riddles about balance or debt. But the faceless man only lowered his gaze, studying the coin. "A coin buys passage," he said at last. "Passage to a city across the narrow sea. But if a girl would spend it here, it may pay for a gift." He weighed the thin disc on his palm, turning it so that moonlight skittered over the unfamiliar sigil. Then he closed his hand. "For this gift, a price must be paid," he said. "More than steel, more than coin. The many-faced god hears all prayers, but the song of a queen's death demands a choir." "No." Arya squared her shoulders. "Name your price." The corners of his eyes creased, neither approval nor mockery, merely acknowledgement. "A girl has given a name which is not a name," he said. "A man must travel farther than the King's Road, deeper than the Red Keep cellars. To kill a lion in her den, one must first don the lion's skin." He slipped the coin beneath his sleeve. 3 moons, perhaps 4. "And the gift will be delivered upon the final moonrise before leaves turn gold." Arya hesitated. The Battle of Blackwater was rumored to be imminent. She did not know the day, only that Lord spoke of weeks rather than months. "Too long," she said. "She has to die before Stannis comes. If Stannis wins and Cersei lives, my sister's still his hostage." "Time is a river," he cut in gently. "Yet one may choose where to dip a cup." He stepped closer, and Arya smelled the faintest hint of cloves and ash. "Does a girl wish to bargain with the river? Or trust a man who knows its currents?" He lifted a hand, as though to brush an unseen thread from her hair, but his fingers lingered a hairbreadth from her cheek without touching. "Trust is also a price." Arya thought of the night's watch vows, of Winterfell's God's Wood, of Maester Luwin telling Bran that trust is earned slowly and broken swiftly. She did not trust easy anymore. She remembered how Sansa's trust in the Queen had killed father. She hardened her jaw. "Make it 2 moons," she said. "That's my price." A low chuckle rippled from Jaqen's throat, gone as soon as it came. "So young, yet haggling as a brave OC banker." He inclined his head. "Very well, 2 moons. But the river will not bend for lesser coins. A girl must offer something greater." He slipped a parchment from inside his tunic, folded to the size of a sparrow's wing. "On this is written the name of a soul owed to the many-faced god, one taken from his temple by thieves of silver and flesh. Bring the name to its doom, and the queen shall fall before the second moon wanes." Arya unfolded the parchment. Ink scratched in glyphs she barely recognized, SOSI letters, perhaps Free City Trade tongue. Beneath, in the common script of Westeros, a single name appeared. Lucan Longwater. She frowned. "Who's that?" "A thief," said Jaqen, voice grown distant. "A man who once bore a different face and stole from the temple beneath the black wall of Bravos. Now he trades secrets in King's Landing. Secrets bought with faces never meant to leave the vaults." Jaqen's gaze flicked to the parchment, then to Arya. "Find him. End him. Only then can the gift be given." Arya turned the name over in her mind, tasting its shape. Lucan Longwater. She'd never heard the name, yet something about it coiled cold around her ribs. "And if I can't, then the gift is lost." He met her eyes with unblinking calm. "And the coin will be but iron again." Her heart hammered. She imagined Cersei on her throne, draped in crimson silk, smile like a blade. She imagined Sansa kneeling, begging for her father's life. The wolves of Winterfell dead, the pack scattered. She imagined Micah gasping for breath. She saw father's head roll. "I'll do it," she said. "Tell me where to find him." 2 knights rode through the gates of Harrenhal at dawn, pennons rippling red and gold. Arya watched from the servants' yard as their destriers clattered across the cracked flagstones and the guards saluted, spears thudding. The riders' helms were polished bright, but their cloaks bore dust of a long ride. "Lannister scouts come to report," she guessed. Roose Bolton received them in the great hall. Arya slipped along gallery shadows, stooped among spider-webbed beams, and listened to the hush of diplomatic poison. "King's Landing bleeds men," said one knight, helm tucked beneath his arm. Rumor has Stannis a fortnight out. Lord Tyrion gathers sellswards by the cartload. Fortnight? Bolton's lazy voice oozed mild surprise. And how fares the Queen's Grace? Queen Regent, the knight corrected. Her Grace commands construction of defenses day and night. Rumor says she insists on wildfire, though the alchemists warn. Arya clung to a pillar, knuckles whitening. 2 weeks. 2 moons had seemed long already, and Jaqen wanted payment first. Every beat of her heart was a lash across her back. She slipped away before Bolton's soft chuckle could reach her again. That evening, she found Hot Pie snoring near the ovens, and Gendry bent over a broken blade. She paused by the boy whose broad shoulders always filled her with complicated heat. "If you were heading to King's Landing," she murmured, "which road would you take?" Gendry straightened, sweat sheening his brow. "South by the King's Road," he said. "Unless you fancy swimming the Trident." He glanced at her sidelong. "Why?" "No reason." She studied Luke and Longwater's name. King's Landing. Of course. Jaqen never made anything easy. She stole a horse that night. Dawn spilled across the green ribbon of the King's Road. Arya rode hard, putting Harrenhal miles behind before crows shook sleep from their feathers. She traveled light. Waterskin, oatcakes, a rusted dagger tucked in her boot. Her blade needle lay hidden beneath her tunic, the weight of home against her ribs, though she had not drawn it since Yoren. "Longwater," she repeated like a prayer. "Kill him, and Cersei dies. Kill him and father's ghost might rest." She imagined Jaqen shadowing her, never far, wearing 100 unfamiliar faces. The thought steadied her heartbeat. 3 days into her ride, she met the first flow of refugees fleeing north. Ragged farmers, gaunt mothers, a armed man leading a starved donkey. They spoke of wolves in the riverlands, of dragons across the sea, of dragons hidden in the city itself. But every tongue circled back to wildfire. "The imps bought enough green hell to burn the world," croaked a toothless woman wrapped in a tattered cloak. "Canary told me, they's melting pots under the Red Keep. One spark and the city goes up like a harvest bonfire." "Then no." Arya pressed for details, but fear had made them skittish as sparrows. By dusk, she camped beneath a twisted willow and traced the parchment again. Lucan Longwater. Did he serve in the Alchemists' Guild? Did he guard their secrets? Why did the Faceless men want him dead so badly? On the 5th day, a storm galloped from the east. Thick, bruised clouds herding lightning down the sky. Rain hammered the King's Road, turning gravel to soup. Arya pushed her mare until she found shelter in a hollow oak. Nearby, 2 travelers huddled beneath a canvas lean-to. She tethered her horse and asked to share their fire. One man gave a weary nod. They spoke little. The older was heavy-set and balding, his beard chopped ragged at the jaw. The younger was lean, with slippery eyes and a mouth that rarely closed. When Arya offered to tend the flames, the younger laughed. "Bold for a little lad." He peered closer. "You're no lad, are you?" Arya froze. The dagger in her boot grew hot. The younger man's grin widened. "Could make coin, that face. Pretty, once it's clean." The older rolled his eyes. "Shut it, Hax." Lightning split the dark, illuminating the hollow. In that silver flash, Arya saw something glint at the older man's throat, a pendant shaped like a mask. She blinked. Had she imagined it? Lightning came again, and the pendant vanished, hidden beneath damp collar. Coincidence? Yet her heart thudded. The older man caught her gaze and smiled thinly. "King's Landing is no place for a lone girl." He gestured at the parchment, peeking from her sleeve. "Looking for someone?" Arya's hand slammed against the parchment reflexively, tucking it deeper. The gesture was foolish. It confirmed the secret. But the man only leaned back, rain hissing beyond the canvas. "Storm's near blown," he said. "Road be mud, but it'll dry." They parted at dawn. The younger, Hax, whistled some bawdy tune as he vanished into the trees. The older tugged his cloak tight, mask pendant momentarily visible before slipping out of sight. "Safe roads, child," he said. "Trust quiet shadows. They speak louder than gold." Arya watched him move off at a pace fluid for his girth. She waited until he dwindled into mist, then mounted and rode hard. heart rattling. Mask.eu. Coin. Ein. Quiet shadows. A faceless man? Or a warning from Jaqen? Either way, she tightened her resolve. By the 8th day, King's Landing rose before her, sprawling across its 7 hills, the Blackwater gleaming like a rusted blade. No banners flew above the mud gate. The gold cloaks were stretched thin, manning the walls. Refugees spilled in and out like fleas on a dog. Arya joined a merchant wagon stuffed with turnips and onions, slipping beneath burlap. The stench was heavenly compared with Harrenhal. Within the city, she changed clothes at a rag picker's stall. Threadbare tunic, patched breeches, a cap to shadow her face. She sold the horse for half its worth, pocketed the coin, and plunged into Flea Bottom's labyrinth where rats fattened on refuse and rumor. Here, tongues wagged for coppers. She bartered the last of her oatcakes for a name, Longwater. Oh, that sellsword spook, croaked a wog-eyed whore perched on a cask. He drinks at the Candlewick on Hook Street, near the Alchemist Alleys. Likes dark corners, that one. Likes stories even more. Lucan Longwater, died to Candlewick. Hook Street. The pieces fell together. Candlewick Lane sat 3 streets from the Guildhall of Alchemists, where wildfire stewed in vaults. Faces stolen from Bravos to trade secrets. Secrets of green fire. Perhaps the faceless men feared a thief would spill those secrets for coin, raising a blaze none could quell. Jaqen needed him dead. Arya needed Cersei dead. Their paths converged. Night cloaked the city in velvet soot. Arya loosened needle in its sheath and slipped through alleys slick with chamberpot runoff. Hook Street curled like a crooked finger between lion toes and shuttered storefronts. The Candlewick Tavern hunched near the end. Signboard charred around its edges, lit by a lone lantern sputtering above the door. Inside, pipe smoke curtained low beams. Sailors swayed over mugs, dice rattled. A minstrel plucked broken chords. Arya slid to the bar and sipped watered ale. Twice she circled the common room, scanning faces. Pockmarked smuggler, plump septon, scarred archers, no data. But in the far alcove, a lone man hunched over a silver cup. His cloak was plain, but beneath the hood, Arya glimpsed a craggy nose. Cheeks scored by 3 pale lines, eyes unreadable pools. Something about the tension of his shoulders, the way his hand never strayed far from the dagger at his belt, screamed sellsword. When he lifted his cup, Arya glimpsed the faintest tattoo coiling his wrist. A mask. She felt her pulse quicken. She took a seat 2 tables away, back to him, ears straining. The sellsword muttered to the serving wench, voice low, calling for Dornish red. No, Bravo C red. The accent slipped. First Westerosi, then Free City lilt. A man used to shifting tongues. Longwater. An hour crawled by. Arya made herself patient. Needle's weight was steady. Shadows warred with lamplight. Finally, the sellsword rose, tossed coin onto the table, and threaded through the crowd toward the back stairs. Arya followed, steps light as snowfall. She kept her left hand near the dagger in her boot, right hand ready for needle. Upstairs hall. Warped floorboards, piss-soaked rushes. The sellsword paused at a door, slid a key free, and stepped inside. Arya closed the distance, listening for bolt or chain. None. She waited 3 breaths. Then she pushed the latch and slipped through. He stood silhouetted before a cracked window, moonlight carving the outline of broad shoulders. "Close the door," he said without turning. Accent Bravosi now, smooth as sea glass. "And tell me, why does a shadow of the night gather in my room?" Arya froze. Needle hovered an inch from her fingers. She let the door ease shut. "You're Lucan Longwater." A laugh. Dry. "I have worn worse names." He turned, light catching his features. One side smooth, the other marred by melted scars, as if wildfire had kissed him once. His eyes were 2 tones, one pale gray, the other deep brown. "Who sends you? The alchemists? The spider? Or that pretty ghoul Jaqen Har?" "Danish Tor." Arya's skin prickled. "You know Jaqen? We studied under the same ceiling once." The mismatched eyes softened, nostalgia tinged with bitterness. The House of Black and White welcomes many faces, but not every heart beats to its rhythm. He stepped closer, palms open. If he sent a child, he doubts his own blade. Why? I'm no child. She drew needle. Steel whispering. I'm Arya Stark of Winterfell, and I'm here for your life. Longwater's gaze flickered to the blade's narrow length. A ghost of admiration crossed his scarred lips. Valyrian steel. Castle forged. She corrected. He nodded. Good. Valyrian might sing too loud. He lifted his hands higher. But tell me, Arya Stark, what song does your heart play? Vengeance? Duty? Or do you even know? I know you die tonight, she breathed, though her voice trembled. And when you do, Jaqen kills the queen. Ah, so that's the game. He sighed, stepping to a rickety chair, sinking into it. Cersei Lannister, always collectors for her head. He threaded scarred fingers together. What did Jaqen promise you? Silver? A crown? Your father returned from death. Me. Arya's face burned. Justice. Longwater studied her, seeing too much. Justice. He echoed. That's the lie the kindly men feed the desperate. His thumb stroked the tattoo on his wrist, the fated mask. I won't plead, if that's what you expect, he said quietly. But I will speak a truth. Kill me, and you kill more than one man. I don't care. But her feet rooted to the floor. He leaned forward. The secrets I carry would drown King's Landing in green hell. The alchemists think they control wildfire. They do not. Worse, they've begun distilling a new salt that burns even underwater. His mismatched eyes gleamed. Cersei craves that power. But I stole the formulas, hid them. If I die, she'll never have them. Arya wavered. If you live, she might, unless I give them elsewhere. He parted his cloak, revealing a ledger bound in cracked leather. To Stannis, perhaps, or to Dorne. Anywhere but the lioness. No. She shook her head. No riddles. Jaqen said you stole faces from Bravos. Did he? A soft chuckle. I stole one face. My own. The one they meant to bury when I left. He traced the scars. What they cannot abide is freedom, child. A life not sacrificed upon their altar. Arya's knuckles whitened on needle. You're trying to confuse me. I'm trying, he said gently, to show you choices. He rose. Slow, deliberate, hands open. One path. You kill me, walk out with the scent of death on your blade, and Jaqen keeps his word. But wildfire still pools beneath the Red Keep, ready to burn half the bay. Stannis sails to his doom. Thousands die, but the queen dies first. Victory for you, perhaps. Another path. You spare me. I give Stannis the formula for wildfire's counter. Sand infused with basalt dust. His ships survive the green fire. He takes the city. Cersei falls anyway. The people spared. Justice. But slower. Then she. Arya's breath shuddered. Faces blurred before her. Sansa weeping. King's Landing children screaming in green flames. Father's head falling. She imagined 2 moons passing, and Cersei still alive while thousands burn. How do I trust you? Longwater bowed his head. You don't. Trust is a price. Echo of Jaqen's words. But weigh my death against their lives. Outside, bells tolled 8th hour. Past midnight. The city snored and schemed beyond the thin walls. Arya's heart hammered like a drum. Needle's tip trembled. Jaqen found her on the roof of the Candlewick at dawn. Pale light bled into the sky, clouds rimmed red with promise of heat. He stepped from a doorway as though merely another gust of morning breeze. A girl is late, he said. His eyes flicked to Needle, clean, unsullied. Then to her hands, stained with neither blood nor ink. The man still breathes? Arya swallowed. I need more time. Time was the bargain. His voice held no anger, only sorrow. The choir waits. The river curves. Granis. That formula. Arya's voice cracked. Wildfire that can burn on water. If Cersei gets it, she will. His gaze held her in iron. Unless the thief dies and the secret dies with him. But if we give it to Stannis, he shook his head. We do not trade in kingdoms, only debts. Lucan Longwater owes a face. No other coin will suffice. He extended his hand. The parchment. Arya's fingers dug into her pocket, clutching the folded page. She could hand it back, abandon the deed, watch the world burn. Or she could fight the path set before her. Father had taught her the choice between right and easy. He died for it. She looked south where the Blackwater shimmered, gulls wheeling above the rising tide. Then she looked at Jaqen, inscrutable as the moon. 2 more days, she whispered. Please, Dot. Jaqen's lips parted, as though to refuse. But then, something flickered in his eyes. Remembrance of a debt of his own. He closed his hand. 2 days. The river grows impatient. Little wolf. He vanished. Arya clutched the parchment and breathed the vow to gods old and new. In 2 days she would choose. But first, she would test Longwater's promise. The next day she prowled the vaults beneath the Guildhall disguised as a novice helper, fetching powdered silt and cedar ash. She watched alchemists ladle viscous green wildfire into clay pots, stamped with crowned skulls. She memorized the placement of gates, guard rotations, the shift bell at dusk. That night, she slipped through Flea Bottom, following Lucan Longwater's trail to an abandoned tannery near the Mudgate. There he stood with 2 cloaked men, names spoken low. Sir Imry Florent, Sir Robard Raleigh, Stannis Men.Pow. She stayed hidden, but she saw parchment pass, saw Longwater scrawl notes across a ledger. Could it be true? Could counter to wildfire exist? She returned to her garret with the dawn, mind bristling. 2 days. She would weigh the scales. Shortly before dusk on the second day, Arya stood again before Longwater. The tannery stank of piss and oak bark. He looked up from his ledger as she approached. Have you decided, wolf girl? Arya held Needle loosely at her side. I've watched you, she said. If you lie, I do not. He nodded toward the ledger. Tomorrow night Sir Davos sails upriver with ships laden with basalt sand. If they live, the city lives. And Cersei, his mismatched gaze hardened, shall drink nightshade before the gates fall, or Stannis will take her head. He drew a thin stiletto. But if your ghost friend insists, I can make her death swifter. Arya thought of Jaqen, of trust, of debt. The faceless men want you dead. Why? He smiled a weary smile. Because I refuse to be a death bought with coin. I choose my own song now. She raised Needle. Then, sing fast. Her arm shook. But before sword met flesh, a whisper drifted through the tannery door. Leather creak. Soft footstep. Arya wheeled. Jaqen stood in the doorway, but his face was different now. Plain, blunt-featured, eyes pale blue. Yet she knew him by the stillness. The river ends, he said. He drew a dagger of smoky glass. A debt is paid. Longwater's stiletto met Jaqen's blade with a hiss. Steel rang. Arya leapt aside as shadow and shadow collided in whirling silence. Stilettos flashed, feet slid. The dance of the faceless men. Beautiful, brutal. Lucan Longwater fought like a mastiff, fierce and direct, but Jaqen wove around him like silk. Arya's eyes darted. Thrust, parry, riposte. She saw openings Jaqen left, almost invitations, but Longwater hesitated each time. Memories perhaps of shared halls, shared vows. Hesitation is death. Jaqen's glass dagger slid along Longwater's rib. Blood bloomed. No. Arya lunged, but Longwater shoved her back. Choose, he gasped. Justice or worship. Jaqen's dagger pierced his heart. Longwater collapsed. Arya screamed. She caught his body, felt blood hot against her palm. Jaqen stepped back, breathing steady, eyes unreadable. A debt is paid, he repeated. Arya pressed trembling hands to Longwater's wound. His eyes, gray and brown, locked onto hers. In the ledger, he whispered. Basalt dust. Find Davos. His breath rattled. Save them. Don't let Wayne fire. His head lolled. Life fled. Arya knelt in a pool of blood, heart breaking open. Needle lay forgotten. She felt Jaqen's gaze. The gift is granted, he said softly. The queen will die before moon's turn. A girl has her justice. Arya lifted her face, tears streaking soot. Thousands will burn. Many must die, he murmured. So others live. She surged to her feet. You're a monster. A girl chose a monster. He offered the iron coin, stained crimson now. And monsters keep promises. He turned to leave. Arya looked down at Luke and Longwater, ledger clutched in rigid fingers. Davos. Basalt dust. Wildfire. She saw father again, whispering to always choose the hard path when it is right. She tightened her grip on the ledger, then on Needle. When she looked up, Jaqen was gone, and night seeped across the city like ink. Bells clanged from the great sept at sunrise, summoning the faithful to prayers for victory. Arya slipped through the press of bodies, ledger hidden beneath her jerkin, mind racing. She must find Sir Davos tonight. Must warn him. Must save the bay. And then Cersei. Justice. Somehow. Above the throng atop Maegor's holdfast, the queen stood on a balcony, robed in crimson and gold, hair like a river of molten dawn. Her eyes surveyed the city with cold possession. Arya felt the iron coin burn in her pocket and knew Jaqen would come for the queen. But she had another battle first. As the bells tolled, Arya whispered a prayer under her breath. To the old gods, to the new, to any who would listen. The choice was made, the river flowing. She would fight for those who could not. The ledger weighed like fate at her side. And somewhere across the rooftops, the song of death tuned its strings for a queen. The story had only begun. Pale dawn smoke curled from half-shuttered chimneys, weaving into the mist that draped King's Landing in a gray shawl. The city stirred like a restless beast beneath Arya's boots, vendors thumping shutters open for trade, water sellers rattling tin ladles against their buckets, carts groaning down cobbled lanes, slick with night's refuse. Yet beneath the normal murmur of morning was a taut, brittle hush, as though every brick waited for the first spark of the coming storm. Arya hunched under her ragpicker's cap, clutching the cracked leather ledger wrapped tight in a scrap of burlap. Longwater's blood had dried dark against her jerkin. She could smell the iron and smoke of it whenever the wind shifted. She felt as though she carried not a book, but a beating heart, one that thumped out the names of every soul who might burn if she failed. The mud gate bulked ahead. Huge oak doors banded with rusting iron, flanked by walls mottled green from the Blackwater's breath. 2 gold cloaks stood guard, spears crossed, eyes sunken with exhaustion. Refugees pushed past in dribbles. A limping sellsword, a fisherman's family, with nets wound round their waists, a boy hugging a rooster beneath his cloak. Arya slid into their wake, ducking her head. "Halt!" barked one guard, leveling his spear. The family stiffened. The boy's rooster squawked, echoing down the road. Arya's heart kicked. If the guards searched every bundle, they would find the ledger. Her dagger, the truth. She edged sideways, feigning interest in the river, when a second column of soldiers clattered up, black stags on their shields, the mailed fists of Stannis' vanguard already probing the shore. For an instant, both groups froze, mirrors reflecting murder. Then the gold cloak stepped back, slamming the gate behind them, and Arya darted into a gap as small as a rat's breath. She squeezed between a wine merchant's wagon and a stack of pitch barrels, slid down a half-collapsed drainage ditch, and tumbled out on the riverside of the wall. She sprawled in black mud, cold water seeping through her breeches. Behind her the gates boomed shut, iron locking iron. Ahead, skiffs bobbed at rotting piers, fishing boats ghosting through dawn haze toward deeper water. She scrambled up, wiped sludge from her hands, and sifted her memory of Longwater's instructions. Davos Seaworth would anchor tonight on the black riverbank beyond the burned hulk of the merchantman Kingfisher. And, he had said, basalt dust in sailcloth barrels marked by 3 white shells. Look for the crescent moon banner. Across the river, the Queen's men worked feverishly, hauling wildfire jars into trebuchets, rolling barrels onto floating rafts, meant to be ignited and shoved at Stannis' fleet. She could smell the sour apple reek even from here. Green fire waiting to bloom. She set off south along the bank, boots sinking. With each step, she rehearsed what she would tell Davos. No titles, no lies, only the ledger and the truth. She prayed he would see sense. By mid-morning, she reached the charred skeleton of the Kingfisher. Hull half submerged, masts snapped like brittle reeds. Crows roosted in the rigging, croaking discontent at her approach. Beyond, marsh reeds whispered. Smoke drifted from tar braziers where stag banners waved. She counted 4 longboats drawn up on mudflats, sailors unloading crates, voices hushed to whispers that carried oddly clear in the mist. 2 guards stood at the path's mouth. Gray tabards bearing the fiery heart of the Lord of Light, quartered with Stannis' crowned stag. They leaned on spears, glancing warily upriver. Arya cursed. She could not stroll up waving a ledger. She retreated behind a drift of river reeds and watched. Sailors hoisted a barrel from a skiff, 2 men staggering beneath its weight, and set it near a tent where a man in rough gray wool sharpened a dagger with short, precise strokes. His hair was pepper salt, cropped close, his beard trimmed to neat stubble. One hand ended in a thicket of scars where fingers had been lost. Sir Davos Seaworth Dog. The Onion Knight. Arya's pulse quickened. She slid her pack off, rifled for a ragged strip of linen, and knotted it around her throat like a crude maester's collar. Then, clutching a wad of rushes for quills, she rose and strode toward the guards. Roar's blessings, she rasped, deepening her voice. The alchemist sent this daybook for Sir Davos' review. Lord Tyrion will want his countersigned totals by midday. The nearer guard squinted. You're no alchemist. She adopted a harassed slump. No, but I do their ink scratching. Do you want their wrath on your head? Last fellow lost an eyebrow to green fire for spoiling a tally. She flashed the burlap-wrapped ledger. Symbol of office. The guard swallowed, exchanging a look with his mate. Nobody liked wildfire accidents. Go on then, he muttered, stepping aside. Arya forced herself not to hurry. She wove between stacks of barrel hides and rope coils, heart battering her ribs. Davos watched her approach, pale eyes wary. What's this now? He asked, voice rough with sea salt. She bowed her head, then snapped her gaze upward. Wolf Grey meeting Storm Grey. A message, she said softly, letting the northern accent leak through. From Luke in Longwater. He's dead. Davos' brows drew together. Dead? How? She pressed the ledger into his hands, fingers trembling. Murdered for stealing that. He flipped the cracked cover open. Sun-bleached pages fluttered, etched with tight Braavosi glyphs, and smudged diagrams of crucibles, furnaces, vessels shaped like gourds and pears. Beneath each sketch ran columns of conversions, notes on ratios of lime to lye, basalt powder to naphtha, obsidian sand to green fire. Gods, Davos breathed. He said you'd sail tonight with sand, Arya whispered. That these notes prove it thwarts wildfire. If it's true, your ships can cross the boom chain alive. If it's false, then we all burn. Davos closed the ledger, studying her as though weighing a chest of gold. Why trust you? I watched him die, she said. The one who killed him will murder the Queen tonight. Longwater believed stopping the green fire would save thousands. I believe him. Across the river, a bell clanged, harsh and urgent. Davos glanced toward the sound, alarm on the city walls. They've spied us. No time. He barked orders. Sailors hurried to float the line of barrels toward anchored cogs. Davos caught her elbow. You must come. Tell Stannis yourself. Can't, she breathed. I've something else. Cersei. Sansa. Dull. The coin in her pocket radiated heat, as though Jaqen's hand closed around her heart. Then at least your name. She hesitated. Nan, she lied. A hint of sorrow touched his eyes. "Nan, then. Tell your gods we'll try." He tucked the ledger beneath his arm, shouted for hoisting. "Sing out if that sand turns to crystal, lads. We'll know it works." Then, sailors wrestled the crescent-bannered dinghy offshore. Davos clambered aboard, the ledger already open, head bent. Arya stepped back, river wind whipping her cloak. Out beyond the mid-current, she glimpsed lines of green-tipped pots gliding toward the chain boom, ferried by Queen's men. She pictured wildfires, emerald halos devouring them, and felt a flicker of hope. If basalt dust quenched the flames, the battle's tide might shift and fewer would die. Yet if Jaqen struck first, Cersei's death might unravel Stannis' claim, leaving chaos and slaughter anyway. Which would break first, Queen or chains? She raced north along the riverwalk, feet drumming planks. Smugglers' skiffs slid past noiselessly, hulls painted the hue of river murk. On shore, the city sputtered with new clamor. Tyrion's voice bellowing orders atop the Bridge of Eyes, gold cloaks dragging catapult arms upright. All morning men swarmed ramparts, stacking barrels, spooling fuse lines of hemp dipped in pitch. One spark would be enough. Arya ducked beneath a cart, slid through a slaughterhouse alley and emerged beside the hill of Visenya. Maegor's holdfast towered above, windows flashing sunlight like drawn knives. She needed to find Sansa, free her if wildfire blew awry. But she had no key, no allies. Only needle and coin. The godswood of the Red Keep might hide a back way. Old Nan had said long ago, secret passages built by Maegor's captives. If she could reach a postern door, slip inside among Septa's servants, she might gain the holdfast. Jaqen would already be hunting. Perhaps she could follow his shadow. She pressed through throngs toward the gate of the Lion's Mouth where fat portcullis teeth bit the road. Lannister guards blocked entry, but a train of washerwomen with baskets gained passage every 7th bell to launder chamber linens. Arya joined them, stooping beneath a wicker hamper. The porter eyed her bare feet, ragged clothes, but linens fouled by sweaty lords, spoke louder than suspicions. He waved her through. Within the outer ward, polished marble flagged the courtyard. Tapestries, depicting Targaryen victories, hung limp in still air. Wet rushes smelled of lemon oil. Gold cloaks prowled. Arya kept her head bowed, arms trembling beneath the hamper, and let the tide of washerwomen carry her across the yard, and into a vaulted passage, where the Queen's maid sorted piles by dye run. The others fell to chatter of chamber pots and lordlings' vices. Arya slipped away, abandoning the basket, and crept along a side corridor hung with heavy Myrish mirror-scented drapes. She counted doors. 1, 2, 3. Then ducked behind a statue of Aegon the dragon. The godswood entrance lay beyond a pair of carved weirwood doors that seldom opened except for nobles seeking quiet. A septa escorted a swaddled prince through, guards trailing. Arya slid behind them before the doors could shut. Inside, the fragrance of earth and moss embraced her. A sudden hush, broken only by wind, stirring red leaves. Sunshafts speared the canopy, dappling carpets of fallen leaf with rubies of light. She swallowed a sob. Memories of Winterfell's godswood rushed in. The heart tree, the pool, the quiet. But here, the heart tree was gone. Hacked down long before. Its stump rumored to be chained beneath the crypts. No old gods watched. Only shadows. Arya circled the perimeter, running fingers along the stone wall until she felt irregular mortar. A crack wide as her thumb snaked downward. She knelt, pressed her ear. Hollow? Dundee. She searched for a catch and found none, but remembered old Bran stories. Press the stone shaped like a crescent, twist, pull. Her fingertips brushed a crescent chip in the mortar. She shoved. Stone grated. A slab pivoted inward, revealing a narrow stair corkscrewing into gloom. She glanced above. No one. She slipped inside, pulling the door behind her. Darkness swallowed her. She descended. Cool air smelled of dust and river silt. Rats skittered. After 20 turns, the stair spit her into a corridor. So tight, her shoulders brushed each side. Torch sconces long unused. She ran a hand along the wall and felt grooves. Direwolf, lion, stag, dragon, Tales said Maegor carved heraldry along secret ways to mark kill zones. She chose the direwolf path. After what felt an hour, the tunnel forked. Faint lamplight flickered down the right-hand branch. Voices whispered, echoing strangely. A woman's low murmur. A child crying. Then a man's placid baritone. She crept forward. A bronze lattice window opened into a small chamber lit by 4 candles. Cersei Lannister knelt by a low crib, stroking Joffrey's youngest brother Tommen's hair. Her face looked carved from marble, yet her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Behind her, a gray-robed maester fussed at vials on a tray. But as candlelight angled across his face, Arya's breath stopped. It was Jaqen wearing Pycelle's loose jowls. Only the eyes were wrong. Flint gray and cold. Cersei turned toward him. Enough milk of the poppy. Half should suffice. Her voice cracked. I'll not have my child comatose when the city falls. Of course, Your Grace. Jaqen Pycelle bowed stiffly, but his fingers glided over vials with lethal precision. From one ampulla, he drew a dropper of clear fluid, not poppy, but essence of nightshade. Arya recognized the color from Tales. A single sip would still Tommen's heart. Her stomach lurched. The Queen planned murder of her own son rather than capture. And Jaqen meant to help, or perhaps use the moment to slip another poison. Arya bit her lip, tasting blood. Could she let Tommen die? He was innocent, the gentle one. Yet if she intervened, she might lose the chance at Cersei herself. Needle rested beneath her jerkin. Cersei lifted the dropper, studying the liquid, doubt flickering across her features. The imp would call this cruelty. She sank onto a cushioned stool, buried her face in her hands. For a moment she looked less queen than frightened woman. Jaqen Pycelle's gaze flicked to the lattice. Arya shrank back. Did he see her through the slits? Hard to tell. He set the vial down and poured wine into a clay goblet. 2 pinches of fine white powder ghosted from his sleeve. Strangler. Not for Tommen, but for Cersei. Her pulse hammered. The plan unfolded. Kill Queen quickly, spare child the Queen's hand perhaps. But strife would follow. Boom. Distant thunder rattled the keep. She felt it through stone. Ships exploding? Or test shots? Joffrey's voice shrilled from some courtyard below. Shouts rose. War neared. Cersei lifted the goblet, swirling wine. Jaqen bowed, stepping back. Arya's muscles coiled. She could watch and ensure the swallow. She could burst in and stop it. Her head spun. A sudden roar rose beyond the wall. Wildfire igniting, shrieks echoing along the river. Green glare seeped through arrow slits, staining the chamber an eerie emerald. Cersei flinched, sloshing wine onto her wrist. Tommen whimpered. Footsteps stormed the corridor. Ser Boros Blount burst through the outer door, pink face shining with fear. Your Grace, wildfire on the water, monstrous, he gasped. But some of it, Maester, the flames. They're doused. Doused. Cersei snapped, forgetting the wine. How? Sand, my lady. Stag ships hurling black sand. The first line of jars went cold. Davos, Arya thought, heart soaring. Cersei's eyes widened with fury. Find the alchemists. Double the barrels. She turned and drained her goblet in one furious gulp, not noticing the unmixed potion settled at its base. Arya's breath caught. Jaqen had not stirred. His calm gaze followed the Queen's throat bobbing. When she slammed the goblet down, a faint purple hue already flushed her cheeks. Tommen sobbed louder. Cersei reached for him, then staggered. Maester, what? She clutched her throat, nails clawing. Jaqen Pycelle stepped forward as if to support her, but she spasmed, knocking over the tray. Glass shattered. Blount rushed to her side. Maester, do something. But Jaqen only watched. In his eyes, Arya saw the strange mercy of the many-faced god. The acceptance of endings. Cersei collapsed, twitching once, twice. Then still. Blount bellowed for help. Guards thundered as Jaqen folded his hands, the mask of Pycelle solemn. Arya tore herself from the lattice, chest heaving. It was done. The Queen was dead. But wildfire still blazed. Davos sand only stemmed a portion. The ledger might save more ships, yet within the city, panic would ignite like oil. She had to reach Sansa before chaos tightened its noose. The secret way spit her into a servant's wardrobe off the Queen's ballroom. She emerged onto a balcony overlooking the grand stair where lords and ladies once danced. Now crossbowmen scrambled to vantage points, slinging quarrels. Arya plunged down a back staircase, nearly colliding with a trembling septa carrying Tommen. Sobbing about, "The Queen fallen? God save us." Panic already spread. Steel clanged below. Into an antechamber she darted, pressing against the doorframe. Tyrion Lannister stormed past, scarred face livid, shouting at pages. "Find Pycelle. Find the Queen. Who primed those trebuchets without my word?" Then or whore. He raced toward the Queen's apartments. Arya slipped from hiding, slicing deeper into the keep toward Maegor's drawbridge. 2 serrated iron spans linking the holdfast to the Red Keep proper. On the far side, she knew Sansa lodged under septa watch. The corridor shook. Another wildfire pot exploded on the bay. But cheers rose, mixed with screams. Stannis' chain had broken. Davos sailing through. She hoped. At the Bridgegate Tower, 3 hound-sigiled guards blocked passage. Swords out. "Hold fast sealed," barked one. "Queen's orders." He stopped, blinking. Orders from a dead queen. Yet, they stood. Arya reached for the coin in her pocket. Sudden inspiration. She held it up between 2 fingers. "Valar Morghulis," she said, voice as cold as steel. The nearest guard frowned. The coin's black gleam seemed to swallow torchlight. He shuddered, stepping back. "Dark magic, out of my sight." He gestured with his spear, grudgingly parting to let her pass. She strode across the bridge, heart hammering, keenly aware of every footfall echo. Halfway she heard pounding hooves. Lannister red cloaks dragging barrels toward the holdfast battlements. They hurried past without glance, intent on defense. Inside the Red Keep proper, corridors buzzed like hive wasps. Messengers sprinted, maids sobbed. Pycelle's assistants scattered near blind. Arya melted into their stream. Sansa's chambers lay in the Maiden Vault this month. She had overheard. She followed memory of Winterfell's layout to a spiral stair trimmed in gold, then down a mosaic passage depicting the 7. When she reached the door flanked by 2 Kingsguard, Meryn Trant and Osfryd Kettleblack, her courage faltered. Needle rested hidden, but 2 armored knights outranked her steel. Then fortune cracked. Sir Meryn pressed ear to the door, scowling. From inside, Sansa's voice rang, forceful in fear. "I demand to know what's happening. Where is the Queen?" Kettleblack shrugged. "Orders is orders, my lady." Meryn jerked his thumb at a page. "Fetch news. If Cersei's dead, the girl's value changes." The page darted off. Arya crept behind a statue alcove, waiting. In moments the page returned breathless. "Queens collapsed, me lords. Maesters say poison. Poison." Kettleblack cursed. 7 hells. If the city falls, they'll want hostages alive. Meryn adjusted his gorget. "Then we move her to the holdfast dungeons. Chains are safe." He reached for the latch. Arya exhaled. She could not allow Sansa shackled deeper. She scanned surroundings. A hanging candelabrum dangled above the Kingsguards, chain affixed to a beam. On a ledge beside the statue sat an iron pry-bar used by masons. Wagons of tapestry repairs cluttered the hall. She snatched the pry-bar, slid behind the statue's plinth, and wedged it into the chain bracket. With a grunt, she levered downward. Metal groaned. She hurled all her weight. The bracket snapped. The candelabrum descended in a shimmering roar of brass and flame, candles spraying molten wax. It crashed between the 2 Kingsguard, knocking Kettleblack sprawling and sending Sir Meryn reeling with scorched cloak. Arya burst from hiding, darted past them, and slammed the chamber door open. Sansa whirled, auburn hair flying, blue eyes wide. "Arya." "No time," Arya hissed, rushing to her. "Queen's dead. City's falling. We must run." A fist hammered behind them, Meryn regaining feet. Arya barred the door with a heavy chair. "Window." Sansa blinked, then grabbed a coil of drapery rope from the bed canopy. Together, They flung shutters wide. Smoke-hazed daylight flooded in, showing the outer garden wall 10 feet below. Bells tolled frantic now. Sansa knotted the rope round a bedpost. "I'm slower," she said, voice trembling but steady. "I'll go first." Arya shook her head. "I climb, you follow." She looped rope round her waist, scaled over the sill, and rappelled. Her boots hit the wall top. She sliced the rope with needle, letting it drop for Sansa to eye. Behind, wood splintered. Sir Meryn kicking the door. Sansa scrambled shakily, dress hampering. Arya extended a hand, hauling her onto the parapet as the door smashed open, and Meryn burst into the room. "Jump!" Arya hissed. She grabbed Sansa's wrist, leapt. They plunged into a hedge of flowering night rose, branches tearing cloth, then rolled onto gravel. Sansa winced but rose, determination stealing her features. "Which way?" "Down to the postern," Arya said. "Through the serpentine steps to the dungeons. Secret well tunnel leads out, under the city. I saw maps." She half-lied, trusting childhood tales. They ran, skirts flapping, twin shadows among shadows. Above, Blackwater Bay burned unnatural green in pockets, but patches of flame sputtered where basalt dust drifted. Stannis' war galley Fury breached the chain, sails scorched but intact. Archers loosed volleys from her deck. Davos' voice carried faint across water, urging men to shore. On city walls, Tyrion gaped at the failing inferno. "Gods bled," he muttered. They found counterfire. Podrick handed him a spyglass. He sighted barrels of black sand bursting, smothering emerald plumes. His plan unraveled. Panic gnawed. He slammed the glass shut, signaled Joff to hold the inner gate. "Ready second reserves, and fetch mother." But Cersei was gone. He looked toward the holdfast. Ravens wheeled above its tower. A chill gnawed his spine. Arya and Sansa descended forgotten corkscrew stairs lit by dim lanterns. Air grew damp. They passed rusted cages, racks, and an oubliette whose iron grate reeked of rot. Sansa gagged but pressed on. At corridor's end a crumbled wall exposed a natural fissure with a breath of fresh river air. Arya squeezed through, guiding Sansa. The cleft widened into a cavern where a shallow stream burbled. Moonlight spilled from a jagged opening high above the well's shaft. Roots dangled, slick with moisture. Sansa clutched Arya's shoulder. "Where does it lead?" "Under the city, to the river. Smugglers used it," she hoped. They followed the stream, shuffling ankle-deep. Echoes of battle filtered down, distant horns, clash of steel. The tunnel curved then sloped upward toward faint light. They emerged behind a broken sluice gate at the river's edge. Chaos raged on the shore. Small folk fleeing, archers firing at advancing stag soldiers waiting from boats. Flaming arrows streaked overhead, some sputtering out mid-flight as dust-laden air damped sparks. Gray smoke and green mist blurred friend and foe. Arya seized Sansa's hand and pulled her along the bank away from melee clusters. They passed a fallen alchemist, writhing, half his face melted green. Arya averted Sansa's gaze. Boats grounded, men moaned, city men and stag men alike. This was not her war, only her escape. They skirted fishmongers' wharfs when a shout rang, "You there, halt!" A gold cloak lunged, spear leveled. Arya raised needle, stepping before Sansa died. But a stag soldier sprinted from behind, axes glinting, and felled the gold cloak with a brutal downswing. The soldier whirled toward them, visor up, revealing a youth little older than Arya, freckles dusting his sweat-muddied cheeks. "Run, little chick," he rasped before plunging back into fight. Arya tugged Sansa along an alley into an abandoned boathouse. They collapsed behind overturned crates, gasping. Through planks they glimpsed the bay, Fury's masts aflame yet afloat, stag banners climbing parapets near the King's Gate. They had hours before lines closed. Sansa pressed a trembling hand over Arya's. "You saved me." "We're sisters," Arya said. "Pack survives." They shared a fierce smile. Across the alley a cat yowled, startled by stumbling feet. A figure leaned against the boathouse wall, sliding down with a groan. Arya peeked out, dagger ready. It was Gendry, chestplate cracked, blood trickling from his temple. She rushed to him. "Gendry." He blinked. Recognition slow. "Arry? 7 hells. You're girls after all." He winced. "Thought I saw you near the blacksmith tents days ago." She forced a smile. "Stay still." She ripped cloth to bind his head. Sansa crouched beside them. "We cannot stay here. Lannister patrols will sweep soon." Gendry nodded. "Storm's men hold the northern break for now. If we reach Davos' second line of boats, they'll ferry wounded back to the flagship." Arya glanced to Sansa, seeing silent plea. "Home, north." She tightened the knot on Gendry's bandage. "We go together." They slipped from shadows toward the waterline, weaving through debris. Columns of smoke towered. In their haze, Joffrey's royal barge fled upriver under heavy guard. Morale crumbled. Near the battered ruins of the Kettleblack dock, Davos himself hauled wounded sailors into a bark. His gaze lit on Arya. "Nan." She smiled grimly. "Worked, didn't it?" He knelt by Gendry, checking the bandage. "Good enough for now." He helped lift the smith's apprentice into the boat. "We sail for the South Bank. Stannis ground vanguard presses Lion Gate." "Safer there." Arya guided Sansa aboard. Davos shoved off. As oars bit the river, Arya looked back. King's Landing's skyline bathed in sickly green shine. But large swaths flickered normal orange where fires dimmed. Pyres of smoke curled heavenward. She thought of Cersei's still body. Of Tommen perhaps safe in Blount's trembling arms. Of Tyrion raging. Queen confirmed dead. A sailor called. Scanning shore gossip. Pycelle arrested for suspected murder. Davos raised brow. Pycelle. Arya swallowed. Jaqen had vanished again. The ledger had served its purpose. Worship and justice, both exacted. How many more debts remained? As they reached South Bank, cheers met them. Storm soldiers raising idolic banners. A pyre of captured green fire burned near shore, doused before it spread. Basalt sand mounded like black snowdrifts. It truly worked. Davos helped Gendry off, then faced Arya and Sansa. "Stannis will claim ransom for highborn ladies, but given Queen's death and Han's flight, you may bargain freedom." Sansa straightened. "We want the North." Her voice rang with quiet steel. "Our brother Robb is king there. If your lord means to sit the Iron Throne, prove mercy." Davos studied her a while. "I'll speak for you." He gestured to a healer's tent. "Rest first." Inside canvas shade, Arya bathed Sansa's bruises with cool cloth. They said little. Exhaustion gnawed. Gendry slept, brow feverish. Outside, drums pounded as Stannis' pushed toward the city's heart. Hours blurred. In the dim starlight of night, several major gates flew open. Negotiated surrenders whispered, small folk dragging effigies of the dead queen through streets. The royal pyromancer slipped away into shadows. The hound was rumored fled. Tyrion, gravely wounded by axe blow, fell unconscious. Davos returned at dawn. His beard dripped river mist. "Stag banners atop Septi," he said. "The city yields." Sel's words turned cloak. "You two ride north at first light under my personal banner. Safe passage sworn. The smith may go free with you. His hammer is no crime." Sansa clasped his hand. "Thank you." Davos inclined his head. "Tell Robb Stark the realm bleeds. Perhaps he and Stannis might stanch the wound together." Arya packed their scant belongings. As she cinched her satchel, the iron coin slipped from her pocket. She weighed it, thinking of Jaqen, of choices. Then she tucked it deep again. Someday she might need passage to Braavos to learn more of Death's faces. In the wagon lines outside the city they found hot pie. Flour-dusted and wide-eyed, pressed into service baking hardtack for stag soldiers. When he saw Arya, he squealed, nearly dropping a loaf. She pulled him into their company. He wept relief. As sunrise painted the bay gold, 4 ragged companions mounted depleted steeds and turned north. The last wolf pack, wounded but intact. Behind them, King's Landing smoldered, green sparks guttering against basalt ash. The Queen's throne stood vacant, but the realm's wars were far from done. Yet, on that dusty King's Road, hope rode with them. Hope wrought from a stolen face, a ledger of secrets, and the unbroken bond of sisters who chose the hard path. And somewhere, far behind, a man with many names shed peisels, withered skin in a forgotten alley, and whispered to his coin, Valor Doharis. K. Cold dawn mist unfurled over the South Bank camp like a funeral shroud, turning every pennant into a silhouette and every man-at-arms into a ghost. Cook fires sputtered in the chill, throwing sparks that winked out before they reached the gray sky. Arya eased out of the healer's tent and tasted the wind for the river's iron tang. It carried instead the sour reek of extinguished wildfire and the sweeter smoke of burning cedar from razed siege towers. King's Landing lay quiet across the water, its bells silent for the first time since sunset. In their place echoed the distant creak of cartwheels and the occasional crack of splintering wood as looters pried shutters and doors from abandoned manors. By the light of coals, Arya stitched a final crude seam across Gendry's brow. He woke halfway through and cursed her crooked needlework. She stuck her tongue out and pulled the knot tight, muttering that if he wanted a proper maester's touch, he could limp back into the city and ask one. He grinned sleepily and fell silent again. Sansa brought them weak, willow-bark tea she had sweetened with a single crystallized cherry filched from a lord's captured wagon. They shared it in sips, and for a brief, fragile moment, Arya allowed herself to pretend they sat in Winterfell's kitchen, licking berry juice from their knuckles, while Septa Mordain chided Bran in the yard. When the sun finally muscled through the clouds, Sir Davos appeared in the tent's flap. Shadows of sleeplessness etched beneath his eyes. "Horses are ready," he said simply. "Use the King's Road north until you reach the Trident. At the Ruby Ford you'll find a Crannogman guide, Howland Reed's nephew. He'll carry you through the marshes and into Robb Stark's patrol lines." He handed Arya a folded parchment stamped with Stannis crowned stag sigil and sealed in dark red wax. "Carry that openly if you're stopped. It names you as guests under Stannis protection so long as you seek no quarrel with his realm." Sansa accepted the parchment and bent her knee in a stiff courtesy, the gesture at once regal and terribly weary. "You have our gratitude, Sir Davos." Davos dipped his head. "What thanks I'll need is your brother's ear once you reach him. Stannis will sue for terms with the Northern King, God's willing. No more than an exchange of envoys, perhaps. No less than a ceasefire between Lion's Teeth and Stark men while the realm mends." Then the bot. Sansa's features, still streaked with fatigue and smoke, hardened into something closer to Catelyn's iron resolve. "I will speak for peace if peace is offered." She paused, then added, "But I cannot promise my brother's swords. That will be enough." Davos' lone smile flickered like a tired candle. He turned to Arya. "Nan." His tone colored the false name with wry affection. "You've a sharp needle and a sharper mind. Use both wisely. And when next you see the one who changes faces, tell him my debt to Longwater is yet unpaid." Then he lay a rough hand on her shoulder and was gone, swallowed by the noise of a camp breaking down. 10 riders made the column. Sansa in a pale gray cloak too thin for traveling, Arya in patched leathers, Gendry in a borrowed brigandine 2 sizes short in the sleeves, Hot Pie wobbling atop a swayback gelding he named Milk Biscuit, and 6 Stormlords sworn to Davos, led by sour-faced Sir Perwyn Follard. Their helms bore the crescent moon of House Follard, and though they had orders to protect, not command, Sir Perwyn treated the mission like escorting prisoners half the time and helpless babes the other. The King's Road north was clogged with refugees. Half wore the stag, half the lion, none trusted either. At each burned villa or trampled field, Sansa's face pinched at the waist, yet her spine never bent. She stopped when mothers begged bread and handed out most of her provisions, forcing Sir Perwyn to barter 2 silver dirhams for new rations at the next village. Arya grumbled at the delay, but that night under the trees Sansa told her soft stories about how Lady would herd sheep in the dawn fog, with nips at their hocks, and Arya found her anger melt into quiet sorrow. 2 days out, they reached a smoking hamlet beside a stagnant pond dyed black by ash. A lone girl no older than 8 darted from behind the charred shell of a sept, a wood axe hoisted like a pike. Her eyes burned with feral desperation. Gendry dismounted first, palms empty, murmuring that the dead have no use for axes. The girl stood frozen a moment, then sagged into tears. They buried her father beneath a wilted willow, while Hot Pie baked the last of their oats into ash cakes that tasted like mud. Arya barely choked hers down. Sansa left half her own beside the child. They rode in silence for miles afterwards. Rumors traveled faster than horses. By the time they crossed the Blackwater's last tributary into the Riverlands, every innkeep knew Cersei Lannister had choked on poison. Many claimed Tyrion had conjured it. Others swore it was Varys hiding in the queen's bedchamber. Still others named Stannis shadow priests. Arya said nothing, but each night by the campfire, she rubbed the iron coin between forefinger and thumb, until heat prickled up her arm. Sometimes she swore she smelled cloves on the wind and almost expected Jaqen to step into the circle of light, trade her a grin for a new list of debts. He never came. Twice they passed parties of Sellswords headed the opposite direction. Free riders eager to taste rebellion's gold or dying of loyalty, too fickle for either side's liking. The followed men kept hands on hilts, but the road remained bloodless, save for the whispers and the tension. Arya learned the names of her guards. Sir Perwyn's younger cousin Martin, big and bashful. Lean Tarthan of Mistwood, who could fletch an arrow faster than Hot Pie could say. Second Breakfast, blind in one eye Osmershite, who swore had lost it to a Dornish sand viper, but whose mates insisted was to a whore's thrown tankard. They were rough, but strangely gentle with Sansa's courtesy and Arya's storms. When Hot Pie grew saddle-sore to tears, Osmer carved him a padded seat from spare wool, stuffed in an old helm cap. On the 10th evening the King's Road bent east along the Green Fork. Moonlight brushed water that boiled white, where hidden rocks lurked. Sir Perwyn ordered camp on an island of dry ground amid reeds. Gendry and Arya volunteered first watch. They stood by the horses, the hush between them thick as river fog. "You killed on the Blackwater, didn't you?" Arya asked quietly. Gendry flinched at the bluntness. "Your hammer wasn't for show." She nodded at the dried brown smear under one rivet. He stared down at his calloused hands. 3, maybe 4, hard to count in smoke. A long pause. Feels like swinging at an anvil, but the steel screams. Arya knew those screams. "You did what you had to." He nodded, though his shoulders drooped. "What about you? That ledger and that coin. You set a whole city on a new course with 2 words in the dark." "It's never just 2 words," she said. "It's 10,000 deaths or lives behind each." She dragged a stone across the dirt and drew 2 intersecting lines. "I chose a path. That doesn't make it the right one." Gendry crouched, tracing her lines with a finger. "If Stannis makes peace, if your brother listens, maybe this road ends better than the last." His gaze flicked to her eyes. "You're not alone on it." The words warmed her chest more than the fire. She looked away quickly, cheeks hot. "Tell that to Hot Pie's backside." Gendry barked a laugh. They shared a grin that felt almost pure. Rain hammered them 3 days straight beyond the neck. Mud swallowed hooves to the fetlocks. Hot Pie wept when milk biscuits sank to its ribs and had to be pulled out by 4 men and a length of rope. Leeches as fat as thumbs clung to every boot. They ate cold salt pork and sharper cheese and counted every fresh welt from midges. Sansa bore it with silent misery. But once Arya found her kneeling beside a mossy pool trying to wash caked filth from under her nails, tears mingling with rain. Arya slipped an arm around her, and together they let the sky cry with them. At dusk of the 15th day they found the ruins of a watchtower sunk into the marsh like a crooked tooth. A man in battered scale armor waited beneath its shadow. Spear butt planted, reed cloak dripping. His eyes were pale green, pupils narrow as pin-heads. Cranagman's eyes. "I'm Rowan Reed," he said, spitting rain. "My father says you follow." He turned without further greeting and disappeared into a reed bed that swallowed noise and light alike. They had no choice but to trust him. Sir Perwyn grumbled, but heeded Davos' letter. Through waist-deep water they slogged behind Rowan's bobbing lantern. Luminous frogs blinked on lily pads. Eerie birds warbled like flutes. Gendry carried Sansa at the worst crossings. Arya hauled Hot Pie's saddlebags and threatened to drown him if he thanked her one more time. Rowan led them to a hide aisle ringed by weirwood roots where tents of oiled leather stood nearly invisible under fronds. 6 silent crannogmen greeted them with nods. One woman, a healer named Maris, dabbed pungent salve on Gendry's reopened brow and bound Sansa's blistered feet with woven sphagnum. They served a stew of cattail hearts and fish eggs so spicy it cleared Arya's sinuses and made Hot Pie wail. That night, beneath a low canopy, Arya dreamed of Winterfell's gods would turn to blood. The heart tree's face wept green tears that pooled into the Blackwater, and when she followed the river, she saw Cersei's corpse nailed to a weirwood trunk, golden hair crawling with beetles. From her mouth spilled wildfire that set the leaves ablaze. Arya tried to smother the flames, but each branch she broke revealed another, and behind her Jaqen watched without eyes, whispering, "Choices." She woke, choking on her own scream. Sansa sat bolt upright beside her, clutching her arm. "The wolves howl tonight," Sansa murmured. "Do you hear them?" Arya listened. Beyond the sigh of reeds drifted a low ululation, mournful yet powerful. She closed trembling fingers around Needle's hilt beneath her blanket. "They're close. Maybe Grey Wind's pack. Robb can't be too far." Sansa smiled weakly. "Then home is closer too." She lay back down and did not let go of Arya's hand until dawn. 2 mornings later, Rowan guided them onto firm ground at last. A ridge rose from the marsh, crowned by a stand of sentinel pines, whose trunks bore fresh blazes, wolves' heads carved in the bark. A dozen northern outriders emerged, cloaks the gray-white of grim skies. Their leader was a tall woman with a scar that ran from chin to ear like a pale river. Arya recognized her from Winterfell memories. Meg Mormont's eldest, Alizen, hard as the rocks of Bear Isle. She took one look at Sansa's face and swung down from her saddle. "Mother, take me," she muttered, voice thick. "You made it." She embraced Sansa with bone-crushing emotion, then stepped back, clearing her throat. Her gaze fell on Arya, and a rare grin split her weathered features. "And the little wolf still bites, I see." Arya tried to look taller, harder than ever. She received a fierce hug of her own that nearly cracked a rib. Sir Perwyn and his men bowed, surrendering the escort to Northern Command. There was awkward tension. Storm and snow seldom met without thunder. But Alizen quickly quelled it. "Lord Stark will want word of how the city fell. You'll ride with us to Maidenpool. The king's host gathers for council there before marching west." She eyed the followed men. "You're welcome to share our fires. Harm these ladies and the others will freeze your souls faster than I can stab you." And Sir Perwyn saluted, the sourness sliding away into respect. "Storm and snow may yet share the same hearth," he said. They clasped arms like soldiers recognizing kin forged in a larger war. Maidenpool stood half-ruined from the Lannister sack, but bustling with northern engineers repairing walls and smiths, sharpening spearheads. Robb Stark's banners flew from the harbor keep, the direwolf rampant, silver on white. Arya's throat constricted at the sight. They dismounted before the main gate while trumpets pealed inside. As they crossed the courtyard, a shaggy gray direwolf bounded through the throng. Grey Wind. He barreled straight into Arya and Sansa, nearly bowling them over. His breath gusted hot, tongue lolling in delighted greeting. He nosed their cloaks, whining. Soldiers scrambled to keep respectful distance. Arya buried her face in his fur, and felt a piece of frozen heart thaw. Robb arrived seconds later, male half-strapped, hair wind-tangled. He seemed older, shoulders broader, eyes ringed in worry lines, but when he saw his sisters his composure shattered. He lifted Sansa clear off the ground in a crushing embrace, then seized Arya, ruffling her hair until she squealed. Tears glinted on his lashes. Catelyn Stark emerged slower, leaning on a carved walking staff she'd begun using after the twins' betrayal. When she tried to speak, her voice broke. Arya stepped into her arms and felt at once child and warrior, wanting to crawl inside her mother's cloak and never leave. Gendry, standing awkwardly aside, ducked his head. Hot Pie wept openly. Even dour Sir Roderick wiped at his mustache. In Robb's solar they recounted everything: Harrenhal's horrors, the coin, Longwater's ledger, the battle, Cersei's death, Davos' letter. Robb listened, knuckles white on the table's edge. When Arya finished, silence hung like winter frost. Catelyn broke it. Stannis offers truce while he seats himself upon the Iron Throne. He asks recognition from the North, or at least its steel left idle. She eyed her son. What answer can we give with our sisters returned and half the realm aflame? Robb rubbed temples. The Lannisters will rally behind the boy king. Without gold cloaks, Casterly Rock's coin buys the reach. But Tyrell sit uneasy with a kinslaying regicide. He raised his gaze to Arya. You may have cracked the teeth of the lion. Arya felt cold despite the hearth. Teeth grow back. Robb smiled sadly. Not if the wolf closes fast enough. Catelyn frowned. Peace with Stannis buys time to secure the North and free our father from the twins. War on two fronts behind crumbling Riverland walls breaks us. Now war. War already broke me, Arya snapped. Peace with one man who burns people alive won't mend it. She regretted the words, but no one rebuked her. Robb sighed. I'll send envoys. If Stannis promises Riverland autonomy, we might share a border without blood. He squeezed Arya's shoulder. But first, we feast your return. Grey Wind insists. The direwolf woofed softly from the hearth where he lay like a mountain. That night tables groaned with loaves, river trout, and capons stuffed with herbs. Hot Pie practically levitated when told he could knead Winterfell's cookbread recipe for breakfast. Gendry was gifted a proper smith's apron bearing the Merman of Manderley. Lord Wyman having heard of his skill, he blushed and stammered thanks. Midway through the feast, Lord Karstark demanded a song for the Queen Killer of King's Landing, and minstrels obliged with a raucous ballad about Fair Tommen's milk-soaked sleep. Sansa winced but managed to laugh. Later, Arya found herself alone in the battlement's midnight quiet, the moon bright upon the bay. She dangled her legs over the parapet and let the chill numb her restless legs. From her pocket she drew the coin, still black as a night without stars. She wondered where Jaqen walked now, which face he borrowed, whose fate he carried on his blade. Had he slipped from the city before dawn? Had he donned Pycelle's beard again to walk free? The world was wide, but she knew their paths would cross. Death never lets go entirely. Footsteps approached. Gendry eased down beside her, offering a cup of warmed honey mead. She sipped and felt the burn unwind knots in her belly. I tried forging a sword today, he said eventually. House Mormont wants more bear claws for their officers. Lord Wyman says if I prove skill enough he'll apprentice me to his best armorer at White Harbor. He glanced sideways. White Harbor's not Winterfell, but it's north. Arya stared into the courtyard where banners fluttered silver. It's closer than King's Landing. Silence settled, but it was gentle this time. I might stay with them a while, Gendry murmured. It's honest work. Northmen pay in coin and respect. She toggled the coin between fingers. And when the war ends... War's end, he joked, then shrugged. I'd see Winterfell rebuilt if Robb prevails. Every new sword needs a good smith. Arya's heart fluttered like a sparrow caught in chimney smoke. She tucked the coin away and swung her legs back onto the stone. I'll hold you to that. She rose. But for now I need sleep before Robb drafts me into war councils. She started down, then paused. Gendry. He looked up, moonlight catching the curve of his cheek. Thank you for being my road. The words felt clumsy, but they made his smile bloom wide enough to outshine the moon. Winter's chill rode the wind into Maidenpool the next dawn, ruffling horse manes and snuffing candles before the matins bell. In the yard, Arya practiced with wooden sticks against Grey Wind, laughing when the wolf nipped her sleeve. Across the bailey Sansa knelt with Lady Mormont's daughters, learning to fletch swan feather arrows while humming a northern lullaby. Robb convened his earls and returning envoys. Word came that Stannis had executed every last pyromancer he could catch and outlawed wildfire. He had knighted Sir Davos a lord and sent missives promising safe withdrawal of northern levies from the south, if King Robb acknowledged his claim and remained in fellowship against Lannister treachery. Robb paced. He wants no war with us. He cannot win one now. Catelyn gazed long at her daughters. Then give him peace. Robb met her eyes. On one condition. He strode across the hall and knelt before Sansa and Arya. My sisters must be allowed to choose their own roads henceforth, free of crowns or chains. His voice carried through the keep. Sansa's hands fluttered to her heart. Arya swallowed hard. A cheer rose from Mormont soldiers, banners waved. Catelyn wept and kissed each daughter's brow. That night Arya found the highest tower, coin in hand. She studied stars until the chill set her lips numb. Then she whispered, Valar Morghulis, and flicked the coin into the dark, watching it arc like a shard of midnight, disappear into the grass far below. She felt no regret, only a curious lightness. She turned and climbed down, eager for the dawn's ride home. Miles away, in a forgotten Godswood grove outside Duskendale, a hooded figure caught an iron coin in his palm, as though it had fallen from the sky. He studied it, lips curving. A gift accepted, he murmured. He slipped it into a purse among other tokens, each a story in waiting, each a life unresolved. Then he donned a new face, a grizzled cell sail scarred by summer storms, eyes agate blue. Whistling, he strode toward the harbor, already planning the next river his blade would navigate. Choices. Always choices. Somewhere north, two direwolf sisters slept beneath the same roof for the first time since innocence shattered, unaware of the music of fate keeping tempo beyond their walls. Yet in their dreams, gray fur brushed sunset snow, and distant howls twined into one voice, promising that pack once broken could mend again. And so, the dance of paths diverged once more, some braiding toward peace, others curling back to chaos, while steel sang low in forge fires and green ashes scattered on the Blackwater's tide. The many-faced gods smiled, and the realm drew breath, waiting for the hammer's next descent.